Welcome to Golden Mastermind Seminars Radio with your host, Jeffery Combs.
Good afternoon, everyone. Jeffery Combs, Golden Mastermind Seminars Incorporated, just getting dialed in here for a Tuesday afternoon GMS Inspirational Facebook Live. Welcome to the Facebook Live. It is officially 4 o'clock Eastern Standard Time, and that is also time for the weekly Golden Mastermind Facebook Live. Scott Lucas, good to see you this afternoon, Scott. Eric Picard, good to see both of you. Eric and Scott, welcome. Wayne D. Clark, good afternoon. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Charles Howell, welcome. Good to have you here this afternoon. Vicky Lee, welcome to Facebook Live this afternoon. And Aaron Knight, good afternoon. Blessings to all in this red October. So if you were or were not aware, October 1st and 2nd were red moons. In the year of the Great Awakening, the hunter becomes the hunted. This is red October. Very interesting times in American history. I welcome to everyone here. Carmen, welcome to Facebook Live this afternoon. Say hello to your dog, Diego, for me. Vicky Lee, say hello to your dog this afternoon. Vicky B. So I do remember many of your dogs' names. J.A. Johns, good afternoon, everyone. Kate Grace, Seth Williams, Patty Roberts. Kate, good afternoon from my favorite city of Kansas City. Deep peace always available. Thank you, Seth. Patty Roberts, welcome. Amy Gilberg, welcome. Amy, say hello to Tom for me. We're going to move into the inspirational portion of today's Facebook Live. And Larry Wasserman, good to see you, my brother. Good to have you here on today's Facebook Live. Who else do we have joining us? Okay, I'm going to move into the inspirational portion of today's Facebook Live. Very good topic for us today, for all of us. Inner peace, inner knowing. So really finding that space in consciousness where we can let go of anxieties about the future and regrets about the past, where you can be and stay present. If you did not notice, this is the powder blue Golden Mastermind logo. It is brand new. I just ordered this and it is brand new. So there you go. You can see that. Nice colors, wouldn't you agree? Gold and powder blue. Michelle Touche, welcome to Facebook Live. I'll also be hosting a Facebook Live this evening at 9 p.m. Pacific, 12 a.m. Eastern. Kimberly Shembari, welcome to Facebook Live. Aaron, great coaching this afternoon. And Henry, welcome to Facebook Live. So the first point on, now when I do Facebook Lives, this is how I do them. So for all of you coaches, this is what I do for a Facebook Live. I do 7 bullet points per half hour. So if I do an hour call, it's usually 10, 11 bullet points. I just do it simply with a good old Sharpie, a blue, black, or green one. And I just lay out the points. None of it's scripted, but if I want to reference to it, I have access to be able to do that right here. So if you are following along, because I do post the points on email and on Facebook, the first point for today is silence your inner critic. Now, if you grew up in a house where there was violence, where you were not good enough, if you grew up in a house where there were moving parts, moving in and out, brothers and sisters, and somewhere in this household you get lost, or your grade point isn't as good as the other children, or you have someone that you can't please, or you have a passive-aggressive perpetrator that picks on you early in your life, grade school, junior high, mean kids, mean girls, all of the other situations, and you start shutting down as a child, or you're held back in a grade, or you have reading challenges, you have challenges deciphering words, any multitude of situations that references that you are not intelligent enough, you're not good enough, you're dumb, and all these other situations that can contribute to your low self-esteem, and now you're a grown-up holding on to some of these same effects, same events. Well, this is what the content is for today. It's to create a separation. It's a letting go process, so you're not the mind-body connection to the events. I did a free 20-minute coaching call with a woman in the past couple of days, and I was giving her insight on showing her how her body shuts down. So if you're asked a question and you automatically go into fight or flight like this, you drop a shoulder and raise a shoulder, well, that's going to hinder your ability to articulate your feelings. If you're in a business that requires sales skills, connecting skills, speaking skills, branding skills, writing a blog, writing a book, writing content, articulating feelings, speaking in front of others, or any multitude of situations, and your body goes into fight or flight, and there's gaps and delays in your communication, you will have challenges selling, branding, writing, connecting, and communicating. It's a very common commonality. It doesn't mean that you're an isolated case. It means you're a large percent of the population. I was pointing out to the same woman how often that the word guess would show up in her sentence structure. The American, Canadian, Australian, English-speaking world inserts the word guess mid-sentence in a lot of their sentences. Now, what does that mean? It means that the communication is broken by a word that's synonymous with doubt. I guess. So when you're guessing, it means you're uncertain. And when you're uncertain, your person on the other side of you, if it's an opponent, they have the advantage. If it's a prospect, they start to feel that you're not certain. If you're speaking in front of an audience, well, they will now understand that you're not sure about your content. If you're writing, you're in a mixed message. And so if you're in this mixed message, you're in a place called doubt. And in that doubt, you will communicate that you're in anxiety, which is anger, hate, resentment, guilt, shame, abandonment, rejection, overwhelmed feelings, grief, apathy, and pride. So that's the communication that's being sent telepathically and also through the spoken word. Now, as many of you are in this breakthrough process, you've been coaching with me for a year or two, or relatively new, and you have a much better understanding. You're reading the book Letting Go. You're reading multiple books. You're reading Codependent No More. You've read some of Dr. Joe Dispenza's content, or you've read Eckhart Tolle, or you've started to read content. You've read Dr. John DeMartini, or any multitude of great writers that really understand mind-body connections and also understand that letting go is being able to separate feelings from events. Now, the reason this is important that you grasp, understand, but most importantly implement, is so that you can silence your inner critic. Because you begin to silence your inner critic, as you begin to let go of any bankruptcy you've been through, divorces you've been through, failed relationships, being let go from jobs, if you've ever got caught stealing, if you've ever been caught with drugs or alcohol or DUIs or all the other situations that hinder you. Roger Maldonado, Steve Haynes, thank you for being on today's Facebook Live. So if you've ever been through any of these situations, those situations then emit feelings of shame. That's when it's personalized, something you did, and you hold on to that. Then it's a very low energetic vibration. So that means that you're going to be critical of yourself and you're not going to be good enough. And then oftentimes what you'll do is get ready, procrastinate, avoid, and all the other situations that keep you behind the glass rather than the other side of it. Now, when you reach this place where you're at emotional rock bottom, the pain is great enough, or you've said, I'm done with this, whatever the breaking point is, and you move into that space, now you can scale up into a place called consciousness. Consciousness is now a place where you can find peace. You will never find peace in anxiety, fear, and doubt, because your emotional state is being driven by the analytical egoic mind and a body that runs the brain. So the body operates first, the brain runs second, then the brain goes, I don't know, I don't understand, I can't make sense of this doesn't make sense. This becomes the communication of avoidance, procrastination, getting ready to get ready, buying time, waiting till the perfect time, waiting till the perfect moment. When I create the money, I'll hire you, I'll buy from you. I mean, that's the egoic mind that waits till the perfect moment. Since there's never a perfect moment, then that situation never happens, because when someone's commitment phobic, they can't commit. Now, as you have a better understanding of this content, as you move into higher levels of consciousness, understanding, and knowing, then you're not the mind-body connection to the events that shape the feelings. Now, once you start to understand a longer breath cycle, so if you've been addicted emotionally, if you've been traumatized, there's a high probability that you have a short breath cycle. It means your energy is up here in your chest, and it's very easy for you to lose your breath and stop and start in your sentence structure, then you become very ineffective in the way you communicate and articulate. But as you move into a better understanding of why you do what you do, that's when the process begins to change for you. And it's also very important that you understand this is not going to be an overnight process, can be speeded up by your ability to understand what letting go means, and you can change who and what you attract in a relatively short period of time, provided you are disciplined. But if you're not disciplined at this, and you're sporadic, like you're in one day and then you're out a week, and then you come back one day and you're out a week, or you constantly practice cheat days. So if you're cheating, a cheat day means, I've been good, so my ego says I deserve a reward. So if you're reward conscious and your ego is fed by rewards, and you have to operate on rewards, and that's what many people do in businesses. They'll go for the gold, they'll go for the gusto, they'll run a marathon for the recognition, but they don't sit their ass in a chair at home and produce the results. They do it in waves, but waves is not what creates consistency. That wave creates a spike, and so that's what many people, they go up and then they go down. Then when their pain is great enough, they go up and they go down. And so they hit an emotional rock bottom, and then the cardio cocktail they drink of adrenaline, cortisol, and dopamine, that's that spike feeling that they get from a recognition, from finishing the race, from rank advancing, from superhuman feelings where you close 10 sales in 1 week and you get this bonus check. But see, that bonus check is not a residual check. The residual check that you'll create in insurance, wealth management, insurance, and any business has a residual compensation is going to come from consistency. And that consistency is what you do daily. But it's also what you don't do daily that compounds. And it's what you don't do daily is why you criticize yourself. And you'll criticize yourself for not being good enough. But if you were actually in an inaction state of consciousness, and you had a routine established, and you were fully engaged in who you are, and you had a business from the comfort of your home, and you're in that state of action, that state of production, that state of results, then you wouldn't have time to be overwhelmed. You wouldn't have time to be critical, because you would be focused on the moving parts of your business and your life. And if you were disciplined, organized, systematic, and had a method and a routine that you operated daily, and you did it 1 day at a time, 2 days at a time, became a week, a month, a year, 2 years, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, like I have done, then all of a sudden you have 32 years of sobriety and a lot of assets over the period of your life. That's what would happen. And if you did a lot of discipline in letting go, you'd have peace. And that peace is the greatest. It's not a victory, but that peace is an accomplishment, because that when you accomplish peace, then you're not, the chatter in your head isn't going like this. And peace does not come from action. Peace does not come from production. Silencing the inner critic doesn't come from recognition and rewards. Silencing the inner critic, it comes from being done with it. It comes from the pain is great enough, and that you start to change the way that your body runs your brain. Now it's not that it's difficult and it's not easy. It's a place in between, and that place in between is called commitment. So it means that you learn to focus on a longer breath cycle. You monitor your word choices. You begin to let go of your unresolved anger, that pissed off energy that keeps you angry and wanting to be right. And that pissed off energy that keeps you disappointed. And that pissed off energy that keeps you in denial, not really ready to recognize why you do what you do. But if you move into that state, that's when you'll start to find the peace. And you'll be less engaged with people. You won't have to prove people right as often. You won't be in conflict consciousness, and you won't be losing your emotions. You'll start to come down in your body right in here, and you'll focus a lot more on this. Relaxation, peace, solutions, results, and outcomes. And less energy on what's wrong with the world, what's wrong with people, proving people wrong, being in conflict. And in that space, you don't ever focus on rewards and recognition, you focus on results. Now, recognition will come perhaps from someone else, from task well done, but if you're not addicted to recognition and you're focused on being your best and creating results, taking care of your obligations and some simple discipline, there's a possibility you'll start to pay off your debts, you'll start to create some profits, you'll start to accrue some assets, you'll be able to focus on a retirement, you'll be able to methodically and systematically over a period of time have some assets that appreciate, and you'll start to live a much better life. And then you won't have a tendency to want to stuff your feelings. Now, I am very skilled at assisting people with this key component. Now, many people focus on weight loss and losing weight and getting down to a certain weight and looking at the scale. I assist people understand it's the feelings that you stuff that holds the weight in place. Now, that metaphor is the same in all addictions. So it's the feelings that you stuff that food becomes the outlet that holds that weight in place. That weight in place keeps you disappointed and keeps you safe and disappointed. Now, your ego is going to say, well, that's ridiculous. I don't want to be safe and disappointed. Well, it's not so much that it's ridiculous. It's a behavior and it's a condition. And until you address the cause that creates the effect of why you do what you do, your mind-body connection will recreate events and feelings to fulfill feelings you're emotionally addicted to. I want to take the time to say hello to Brian, Joylene, Janet, good to see you in Chicago, and Aaron, thank you. I internalized conflict for years, no more. Letting go is key. So letting go is a key. So it doesn't matter how many times I do a Facebook Live. On every Facebook Live and every coaching call that I coach you, we will go over letting go until letting go becomes like this, auto-suggestion. Auto-suggestion is a term that I learned from Napoleon Hill. In the late 80s, it means automatic, autonomic, right here, right now. It means that instead of automatically going into fight or flight, you automatically go into letting go. That's the term that I have coined, always letting go. When you're always worried, well, you've created the outcome. When you're always overwhelmed, when you're always unorganized and you communicate like that, and then the word guess shows up frequently in your sentence and you say, I don't know, I don't know, I don't know. Well, it's going to be challenging to let go, because if you don't know what you hold on to, how can you separate your feelings from what you don't understand, or don't know, and aren't aware of? It doesn't matter how young or how old you are, because every one of you can learn the skill of letting go. And Suzanne, so good to see you here this afternoon. I had the privilege of coaching Suzanne earlier today, and she is an exceptional woman. I must say, Suzanne, your energy was very inspiring right before this call. So if your emotional state is driven by anxiety, fear, and doubt, well, and you're in that state frequently, there's absolutely a way you can let go. Now, many of you who go ahead and chime in here if you in the last year have begun to practice always letting go, and there's been significant benefits from letting go. And if you feel free to write a comment on here, if you're in that state of letting go and the benefits that you're starting to derive. Now also, once you let go, you can teach others the same skill, because it's really a relatively easy skill to master once you let go of the difficulty of it. But if you hold on to the story, fuck, dude, this is really difficult. Oh my God, why do I do this? I don't understand. I've been in the program for 20 years. Well, that's good. But see, the 20 years is still good. You don't ever de-edify something you've already done. What many people don't understand is that they've done a lot of effort, and the effort still counts. But you don't denounce the effort. You don't go, oh God, I put so much effort into this and I'm not where I should be. Well, no, you are, dude. You're right where you're supposed to be. All the effort you've put forth counts. It's that next step of letting go that will create the difference. You're right at the precipice of it. Don't fucking quit now, Chief. You're right there, baby. It's right here, right now. And I mean, this is where you have a quantum leap. And you see, when you put the effort in, you never know who shows up. When you put the effort in, so Michael Cole, good to see you, my brother. I've known Michael for years, going back to the early 2000s. So when you put that effort in, that effort compounds. And that effort compounds, you don't know when it's going to catch up. The quantum leap could happen any given day, like in sports, any given Saturday, any given Sunday, any given Friday. You just never know when David beats Goliath. And your David is your higher self, but your Goliath has been your lower self. So your ass has been getting kicked by Goliath because you know that you're better than this. You know it's within you. You know that you just can't go out like this. Now, that's where I was. I was like that in my mid-30s going, WTF, how did I get to $100,000 in credit card debt? How did this happen to me? And I had 9 years of recovery. I couldn't believe that I had let this happen to me, but it did. And I had to sit down and really do a fourth step for about the 400th time. But for whatever reason, that fourth step that I did in 1996, where I took fearless and moral inventory of self, not others, but fearless and moral inventory of self, and realized how I'd chronically debted myself into rock bottom, and the only solution was to address the problem. And so the problem was that I kept going from business to business, shiny object to shiny object, taking signing bonuses and not really staying the course, and going for shiny businesses that would go out of business and leave me disappointed. I had $28,000 left on the table that I couldn't cash. I had two monthly checks for a total of $14,000 that I was unable to access. And I mean, that's what I kept attracting over and over. And it was very familiar to the way some of my relationships were, shiny relationships with people of no substance. Well, that was a direct reflection of who I had been and who I still had lingering feelings about. And I didn't have any inner peace at that point. And when I hit that was about my fourth rock bottom. That was my first major rock bottom in sobriety, $100,000 in credit card debt after 9 years of sobriety. But I told myself, this will never happen to me again, and I will not repeat this behavior. Now, I didn't require another rock bottom to get the message, but it did happen that way. And I don't suggest you go out and find a rock bottom, because you're probably already there. You don't require going any further than where you are right now. What you require is inner peace. Now, inner peace cannot be given to you by a relationship with a man or woman. It's not going to come from your dog. It's not going to come from any outside influence or any outside source. It's going to come from you. Now, it can come from prayer. It can come from meditation. I mean, there are modalities that can assist you, but can also come from you sitting right here, right now, and letting go. And that letting go, all it requires of you is to give yourself permission to be less critical of yourself, not be so judgmental of yourself. Stop telling yourself you're not where you should be. Address the situations, the relationships you're in, the job you're in. Stop holding on to shit that does not matter. Let go of the story about how you're going to do this in the future, and begin the process today of recovery. Now, that recovery means it starts with being lovable, good enough, and letting go. Now, letting go means you're able to separate your feelings from the events that shape them. I've been writing affirmations for years. I started writing affirmations in the early 90s after reading Florence Scovel Shinn's book, The Game of Life and How to Play It. And then I bought my first deck of affirmation cards from her. And I used to cast the burden of the Christ within. That was my favorite card in that deck. So I began casting that burden and letting go. Now, I didn't really understand letting go until I read Hawkins in like 2005. But through the 12-step programs, it was let go and let God. And that was good for the time frame, and it still is good. But when I started to understand like the quantum physics of letting go, and that there's actually a mechanism to it, and there's actually a science to it, and I could actually take letting go to the next level, that's when my life began to change, because that's what changed who and what I attracted. I was a very codependent producer for much of my life, where I would attract a team or a business, and then I would do too much for everyone, then I would make the team mentor dependent, so I could get the attention, then I could be pissed off when they would fail, and then I could do it all over again. I could get that high. And in the laws that govern money, it's called the law of the lid. I had like maxed out at $18,000 a month. I couldn't seem to exceed beyond that. And so I'd go somewhere between $5,000 and $18,000, and I'd just barely be able to pay my bills and credit card statements, because that I could never really seem to get ahead. So that was part of I could never really seem to get ahead. I caught myself saying, fuck, I'm saying this all the time. I had to stop. That was the affirmation I was affirming. We don't even know sometimes in our analytical egoic mind what we say to ourselves. But when you start, Shad Helmstetter wrote a book on that in the 80s, What to Say to Yourself. It's a really good book. And when you start to understand a lot of your communication is critical, this is when you can go, whoa, I'm so done with this. When you start to understand that a lot of your communication is anger-based, disappointment and frustration-based, well, it's no wonder you're attracting to reality like-minded, quality, non-success seekers to fulfill your disappointment. As you begin to let go of this, now the simplicity of this is not making it complicated. You cannot duplicate complication. You can only duplicate simplicity. And when you start to become very simple in the way you operate, and when you start to shorten your sentence structure, when you start to answer a question. I asked someone a question today, and about 3 minutes into it, I said, do you remember the question I asked you? He goes, and I'd ask him a yes and no question. He got a great understanding from that today. So I want to thank all of you for being on today's Facebook Live. Do your best to be your best. Jenny Clough Harper, welcome to Facebook Live. Do your best to be your best on letting go, separating your feelings from the events that shape them. Inner peace and inner knowing. So the peace comes from within, and then the knowing comes from the trust. So when you trust the universe, when you trust yourself, when you trust when you know, then you won't say, I don't know. When you do know what you tell yourself you don't know, then you know. And when you know, you know. When you know that you don't have to explain what you know. When someone goes, how do you know? Just say, I know. Well, how do you know? I know. And if they continue to ask you how you know, go, I'm going to go ahead and let you go because I know it's time for me to go. And the less you say oftentimes, the more peace you will have. When you are simple and not complicated, you'll attract your reality quality, like-minded success seekers that you can collaborate with. If you are on today's Facebook Live and you have not accessed a free 20-minute coaching call, Rebecca Burns Wright, good to see you. If you're first time here on my Facebook Live and you have not accessed a free 20-minute coaching call and you have considered hiring me at some point, feel free to go right up there in Messenger, send me your phone number, and I will respond to you within 24 hours. If you are brand new, the syllabus for the call is right here on my Facebook page. You can download that. It is available comes out every Monday. And this call is recorded and available on iTunes and Podomatic at goldenmastermind.com. Thank you very much, everyone. Valerie, good to see you. Lisa Faye, good to see you. Joylene, good to see you. Have a great afternoon. Kevin, good to see you. Have a great afternoon, everyone. Nikos, you are the man. Nikos is in, let me think, you're in the Ukraine, right? Kiev. Nikos is on from the Ukraine here. That is tonight for Nikos. Brenda, good to see you. First time here. Thank you. Have a great evening, everyone. Going to call it a day. Goodbye.